Hello, welcome to Good Things. On this week's show, we're going to have Jean-Claude Van Damme versus Jean-Claude Van Damme. Not in Double Impact, but in Bloodsport versus Lionheart. Two movies that are practically identical. Yeah, welcome to the show. That was recorded about 50 million times. The intro and still made no sense.
Yes, exactly.
So I suppose the long version of what this week's show is about is because we're going to do it just on Bloodsport, but Laura didn't like Bloodsport. So we thought, oh well, maybe instead of just having it as a waste, we can kind of look at Lionheart, which is a fairly similar. It was either that or Kickboxer, which is kind of similar to Bloodsport as well.
Isn't every Jean-Claude Van Damme film basically the same?
Very different. No. Best film, Universal Soldier, hands down. He was actually.
Why are we not watching that thing?
We should have really in hindsight, but so Bloodsport. He's going off to Akumite, which is basically Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter are based on Bloodsport to a certain degree. If Bloodsport came afterwards, there was some time travel involved with it. But it's based on life and times of Frank Dukes, who we'll talk about a little later on, I'd imagine, when we're going through it. And it's fucking Enter the Dragon with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Except really rubbish.
Yeah, he runs away from the military to go and perform the Kumite for his sensei's honour.
What a Kumite is?
It's Mortal Kombat. I would have thought that people, if they don't know what Mortal Kombat or fucking Enter the Dragon is, like, what are you doing listening to a podcast about Bloodsport? But Lionheart is a movie about Jean-Claude Van Damme getting caught up in underground street fights to try and
make money
for his sister-in-law to look after her child after his brother dies in a drug deal gone wrong. And like, normally people that kind of do a whole thing about where it's a movie about getting revenge for your dead brother. There's even a scene in it where he's talking to the police and he's, what happened to the guys that did it? And it's like, oh, we're dealing with it. And he's like, okay. But yeah, so he's on the run from, he's in the French Foreign Legion and he
inexplicably run by a German.
Yeah, and as what it's called Lionheart nowadays. When I saw it when it came out originally over here in Europe, it was called AWOL, Absent Without Leave.
Mm-hmm. Which would make more sense.
Yeah, I seem to remember being a little bit more violent, so I don't know if there's two different versions of it out there or what the story is there, or if it's just kind of like nostalgia has betrayed me. Severely betrayed me.
Very tenuous reason why it's like his name is Leon, and they're like, we are calling Lionheart, and he has we were actually puzzling over what the fuck it was meant to be for at least 10 solid minutes as well. He's got a really bad tattoo, supposed tattoo of a lion over his heart as well.
Yeah, it looked like Mickey Mouse or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It looked like a raccoon holding a balloon or something. I don't know. It was just bizarre. And then I was like, oh, it's a lion. You look at it the other way around.
Yeah. But basically the two of them are very similar movies. They would have been at the start of Jean-Claude Van Damme's career. Bloodsport would have been very one of the first anyway. I don't know if Kickboxer came before it or not. Kickboxer is fucking the same as well. It's about a fella whose brother gets killed in a illegal kickboxing fight over in Thailand. So he goes off and he trains up to get revenge on the guys that killed his brother, but he goes into like a kickboxing tournament. Cool. So there was a lot of films
just
like this.
Real life then. Yeah. There's an awful lot of that. People just going into kickboxing tournaments for revenge of their dead brothers.
Yeah, well, with Kickboxer I think there might have been 4 or 5 movies. And like the Kickboxer...
How many brothers did he have?
No, it was different guys. But like, I mean, Kickboxer it was such a big deal when it came out. Afterward, there was a bunch of kickboxer movies. So it was like American Kickboxer, fucking Angry Kickboxer, Your Mother's a Kickboxer, all this stuff.
Kickboxer 2, Electric Boogaloo.
It's easy to look back at these things, and like with Bloodsport, it's easy to look at it and like, I like it. I think Bloodsport is hands down better than Lionheart. I think it flows quicker. It's just more simple. It's like, right, it's a fucking...
It probably makes a bit more sense, I suppose.
Yeah.
Even though that made no sense.
But, like, I mean, before Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and all that, like, Mortal Kombat was based on Bloodsport. Like, one of the characters in it is based on Frank Dux, or Dukes, you know, but they couldn't get the rights to
Johnny
do... Or
Cage,
he's going to be... Yeah, Johnny Cage was going to be Jean-Claude Van Damme. They were originally going to call it Bloodsport, but they couldn't get the rights for it, so they went with Mortal Kombat. So, you know, there was like, it was a big thing with these computer games. But in the 80s, there was like, it was Yaya Kung Fu was one that I was really fond of. But when you go, it's terrible. You just jump around going, yeah. And then there was one which they actually play in Bloodsport. Oh God, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like a kung fu thing, and the characters just kind of like a little bit forward, step by step, and then like one kick, and then like the guy fall down. Yeah, it was shit. But you know, everyone wanted to kind of have these, and like Street Fighter 2. I think we did a podcast at one stage about Street Fighter 2.
Well, there, I suppose, it started the proper, like, you could have like nights with your friends basically, and like, we'll go up like player versus players. I don't know, friends, I suppose.
In the arcade. But like, I mean, to these movies, people were looking at them and going, you know, this would be a fucking excellent game. And I think that is it's basically Mortal Kombat without the magic and
or
the
coolness. Entertainment.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose we might as well start off by having a little look at this Frank Dux character as well.
Yeah, it's when the film, like the whole story of Bloodsport is right. It's Jean-Claude Van Damme's character, which is based apparently on the real life of Frank Dux. He, like, when he was young, he broke into this guy's house. Sensei Toshi, was it, or something like that?
No, his friends broke into this guy's house and he stole a fucking...
Well, they only knocked it on the ground, and he picked it up and
went to put it back.
So your man Toshi he was like, he'll train fucking Frank as a kid, but he only wants him as like basically a doll to be beaten up by his younger son, and they become great friends, and then the younger son gets killed somewhere.
Inexplicably killed, yes.
Years later. So then fucking your man, when
Frank Dux is essentially his surrogate son.
Yeah, he decides.
Like, what you do, you can follow complete the family line.
But that's it. Years later, he decides that he's going to enter into Kumite, which is like a fucking, like we keep saying, it's a street, well, not a street fight, but like an illegal organised tournament.
It's like
for the best fighters in the world.
Before the UFC
before the UFC. I'd imagine the UFC is based heavily on this.
Possibly.
And you probably think that's great, but I guarantee it fucking is.
Yeah. Dana White saw this man. Do you know what?
Dana White bought the UFC.
Oh, okay.
There was different people at the UFC going for years beforehand. And Dana, because it didn't do well financially, and the UFC, because it was never sanctioned by the Las Vegas boxing people, so it was seen as illegal. So it could only be, I can't remember what. It was only in one state they could have it. And it was like Dana White.
It was always in Las Vegas. It was
they might have it wasn't. It was only when they got the boxing commission came on board. When they'd recognise it, because at first there was a lot of people, because like, what's after happening? Like, I know boxing is still a thing, but boxing is nowhere near as big as it was. UFC is after annihilating it, because like once you see someone getting fucking more, and it happens in 3 minutes, as opposed to watching someone getting slowly punched to brain injury on like stages.
Gently tapped with a boxing glove, as opposed to getting somebody's eyeballs ripped out or something.
It's just not exciting, but that's a UFC history time. But he goes into the Kumite and he fights people from all around the world. He makes friends with a big American. Over 3 days, they tell each other they love each other. And then there's a big bad guy, which is Bolo Young, Bolo Young is a great fucking star, but he's one of these guys, I think, because I'm not sure what part of Asia he's from, but he was kind of put down as being the villain in movies for a long time. Same thing happened to Bruce Lee originally, and they did it with what's his name in Hero? He used in Lethal Weapon 4.
Yeah.
Oh,
Jackie Chan.
What do you fucking? Not everyone is Jackie Chan, but it's they always had this thing where kind of like, say, Chinese stars, they're big over in the country, and then when they come to America, they're played the villain. which is kind of wrong, you know, with things. But where am I going? Oh yeah, Bolo Young is the bad guy in it, and then kind of like he likes killing people in the things because there's no rules. Yeah. So then Frank Dux fights him and beats him at the end. It's kind of like the Karate Kid, but with no charm.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the very end of it, then comes up, it goes, based on the real life events of Frank Dux's life or some shit like that, and it comes up, Frank Dux won 350 or 600 fights in a row, knockouts.
Was like fucking 60 knockouts, and
it was like
70 of these were in the first 2 seconds of the
quickest
match.
Knockout was like 0.2 seconds,
and
it's like, what? So now, by anyone who's got their head screwed on, when they'd hear stuff like this, they go, this guy is insane. This is bullshit. If you look up pictures of him online, or there's YouTube videos about him, because he's still alive. You will see pictures of him when he was in the CIA, apparently, all done up in camouflage with a knife in his mouth and looking like.
Because that's what the CIA are always known for.
Yeah, he's looking like Jesse Ventura out of Predator, and you kind of go, that doesn't look like a real army picture to me.
No, and then you see some videos of his demonstrations, and it's kind of like he has to have very
everything
willing
is about punching people in the balls.
Yes,
it is like there was. We were looking at a video a guy did about him, and he was like saying, well, he got like a very young Jean-Claude Van Damme who kind of fell for his shtick, and he was like, this is how you really fight. So when you're looking at Jean-Claude Van Damme's earlier films, you see nearly every fight
there's a lot of nut shots.
There's a lot, like he wins Bloodsport or one of the fights by punching a guy in the cock.
Yeah, and it's always like really slow motion and really dramatic, where it's like he does the splits and slides under and it's like, whoa.
So this was based, and as well, he was saying that he was the master of Dim Mak, which is the death touch. Now, the death touch in this isn't like the death touch as people would traditionally know it. It's like, oh, pick a brick at the end of other bricks and make that explode. It's all a bit kind of like, but I'm basically your man Frank Dukes tricked Hollywood and Jean-Claude Van Damme for quite a long time into thinking that he was legit and real deal, and that he fought. Kumite does not exist. There's no records of it ever existing. There's no records of him being in the fucking CIA or in the army.
I don't think there's any records of him even having any martial arts training.
But apparently Jean-Claude Van Damme fell for it, and he worked on a lot of the earlier films with Van Damme as like a consultant and stuff, and an advisor, and I think he kind of helped write the script for Bloodsport, and I think maybe with Lionheart as well, because there's a lot of cock punching and an awful lot of cock punching in that. But yeah, it turns out he's more than likely a complete and utter fraud, as if you wouldn't guess. They had a falling out thing some years later, and Frank Dukes was saying that, like, oh, Jean-Claude Van Damme was a fraud, he wasn't a martial artist at all, that he was like basically a painter or or a janitor or some shit like that when he met him, and he trained him and taught him everything that he knew and got him into Hollywood. So basically Bloodsport is not a true story, but like that doesn't matter.
Based on a true story.
I would, if you go like, for people who aren't familiar with it, there's this whole weird world of fake martial arts goes on. Mac Dojo Life is a great one on YouTube. Like me, we actually experienced, we used to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a while, and one of the places that we used to do it before we went in, there was this guy that used to do kickboxing, kickboxing.
The class before ours and such.
And it was like, you're talking like people under 12, I'd imagine. They looked like really young kids. And any time that we used to show up the end, we basically walk in on him beating the shit out of kids.
And he had this real sort of Cobra Kai mentality, where they're all like military fucking grade training, and so as in like the kids are all like rigid, like, yes sensei, no sensei, and all this kind of stuff. But it didn't
look like most of people, for people who aren't into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a lot of people, that when you get into it, you're probably into martial arts anyway.
It looks a lot like wrestling, I suppose, really. And this guy, it didn't even look like kickboxing, it just looked like a lot of fancy pirouetting.
It didn't. It looked like movie fucking kind of thing. Yeah. But it was like, it was a grown man basically beating up children.
Yeah.
So the guy that was training us went in one day and just said to him, "Oh, hey, look, why don't we kind of like have a friendly kind of chat, because you're like you're a black belt and."
Now this wasn't like the Karate Kid where people are like throwing down the gauntlet. No, I challenge you to a duel.
Now the guy that was like with the jiu-jitsu guy had the full intention of fucking kicking the shit out of your man in front, because it was just like, you think you're a tough guy, but he didn't want to kind of like approach it
like that.
He wanted to kind of get you. So your man thought, I'll fucking kill you.
This guy, because the jiu-jitsu guy was,
most jiu-jitsu people don't look like
they're
this.
skinny, they're wiry, they're they don't look like they carry any heft. But
now not most, but some. Like, I mean, the people that when we were doing it, but the people that we were doing it with, they were fucking killers, but they didn't look like killers.
Yes. They looked like lovely, happy, very small, kind of wiry people that wouldn't be able to lift so much as a.
But long story short, the guy that was training us went in and fucking killed your man in the bed. He did it nicely at first. He just took him down, and he kind of like, he didn't do that, and he kind of laid on him for a bit, and then your man tried to headbutt him on the ground, tried to bite him and stuff. So your man just started laying in on him with elbows and fucking like treated him like a child, kind of sitting on top of him and just humiliated him
in front of his class.
And it was just kind of like, you know.
Yes, that's what you get when your main target is beating up 8-year-olds and stuff like that. A bit like Kramer in the dojo, you know?
Yeah, but that's where I was coming with Mac Dojo life. So you have a lot of guys. There's a lot of fucking fake martial artists out there. People set up martial arts schools that they don't have any. They might have done 1 or 2 classes and they think that they're like a black belt and
fully qualified or whatever. Yeah, and they buy their fucking, their affiliation or whatever. Like
it happens at some places. Well, they buy an affiliation with the school and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm a black third dan or whatever," and they don't have that, and then they just.
But I suppose bringing it back to, it's a bit like your man Frank Dukes and other people like that, where they do that kind of a thing where they're like, yes, I am, a learned sensei and I have so many black and then it's like,
Steven Seagal is a perfect thing. Steven Seagal is a fucking lunatic, and people buy into it. You get a lot of it with Aikido. Aikido is a load of shit. I'm sorry for anyone who might be into Aikido, but it's a load of fucking shit.
Well,
it does not work in any. Laura, you cannot fucking. If you went up against someone in any normal fight,
but I mean, I don't think. I think Aikido is more about. No, it's not quite like Tai Chi with just flow. Aikido, I think, is meant to be.
People that are doing it don't think of it like that. The people that are doing it think that it's the most effective martial arts and it's using all the key. You see loads of videos. If you look up kind of like Aikido person versus MMA. Or Aikido versus, they do. They get, and you have because they buy into the people that are in their classes. There's this weird kind of like social fucking kind of hypnosis thing that goes on, or something happens where people just buy it and they act. So kind of like someone just barely touched them, they fall on the ground. They're like, oh. So it kind of works into where the students buy into this lie, but then the fucking professor over time buys into his own bullshit
and his own hype.
Yeah. So there's loads of videos of these professors going up against like proper fighters and getting murdered because
turned
it's
into
like,
paste on the mat.
How come when I flick my finger around that way you don't go flying into a wall? And it's like, but Steven Seagal is one of those guys. Steven Seagal is notoriously bad. Like, he's pretty much despised, I think, in kind of Hollywood films. Remember, they'd never have him in The Expendables. He's full of shit. Like, apparently he's awful on movie sets as well, because he was like, has no regard for like stuntmen or his other actors. So there's loads of stories of him breaking people's noses. He doesn't know what he's doing. Like, he doesn't. He's a lunatic. But
I love the way you're an authority on this.
He is. Look up. There's loads of videos, but there's loads about him online, and as well, like, he thinks he's best friends with Vladimir Putin. He's a scumbag.
That's true, yes.
But some of his earlier movies are actually okay. Nico is good, and the one with screw faces everywhere, man. That's good. Was that hard to kill?
I don't know. I despise these films mostly.
Really? How can you despise karate movies?
I'm just not a huge fan of it because it never translates, unless it's something, I suppose, the more recent ones, like, I don't know, John Wick or something like that, where it actually looks kind of cool and it looks like, oh yeah, that seems feasible. Not that I think like I'd be able to do John Wick things, but you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's just, I think the older ones are just all a little bit overwrought, I suppose.
Yeah, Bloodsport. I wouldn't say that the choreography is held up to time.
Yeah.
And as well, there was one bit in Bloodsport apparently where it's, he's fighting the kind of, I think he's meant to be a sheik or something like that. And he gives him a back fist, or he gives him a back elbow or something like that, and knocks him out with that. that happened in real. He accidentally caught your man with his elbow. He didn't see
shit.
it, and he knocked him out for real.
Oh shit!
And they left it in because they were like, no, that's a
it
great
looks
take.
good.
Yeah.
Looks authentic because it is authentic.
But the great thing about Bloodsport for me in the 80s, I mean, kid, was like you had all these different characters already, and they didn't get into their backstory or anything like that. Like the kickboxer guy, he just kind of like, he just looked like an asshole, and he was just like vicious. There was the African guy, which is probably a bit racist, kind of the way
the stereotype of it.
Yeah, where they had all the rest of them training, like kicking fucking sandbags and stuff, and then goes to him and he's like chopping the tops off coconuts with his hands, where you're just a bit like, oh, I don't know.
And I don't think it is. No, I'm not even going to get into that. Go on.
Yeah, it's probably a nice way to put it. Probably problematic.
Yes.
But I don't think there was any kind of.
Not malice in it. Yes.
No,
I
it
think
was
they're
just
trying to demonstrate. Look how multicultural this event is.
Yeah, I think it was just for the time. It was just, and as well, it was probably a shortcut.
It was acceptable.
Yeah.
In the 80s.
Where, like, say for the guy from, oh god, where is he? I think he might have been from Hawaii. I'm not 100% sure, but they had him in like the Hawaiian garb.
All right, yeah,
and he was really big, like.
Oh gosh, right. Okay.
I don't know, there's all these shortcuts basically because they're like, right, we can't get into
a huge backstory.
Yeah, so we have to. So it's like with Street Fighter. You look at Vega and you kind of go, all right, he's into bullfighting and he's Spanish maybe or some shit, and he has a mask and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, it's fucking cool, is right. But yeah, with Bloodsport, it was all those different fighters and stuff, and like if you had toys, you could kind of like Action Man, you'd be like pew 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 with your feet.
I was just going to say pew pew. Or you're not supposed to be punching people, not shooting.
Yeah, well, you can do both.
Pew pew.
Yeah, and like there's no rules in the Kumite.
Oh really? Yeah.
But and Bolo Young was like a proper villain because he's just like killing people, where the rest of them are like trying to fight. He like takes
fighting
pleasure
with
in it.
honor.
Yeah.
Yes. Whereas he's like, I will damage you to the point of death.
But I think Forrest Whitaker is in it as well.
Yeah, so I was very surprised. I was like, okay, I know it was probably young and all the rest, but I was like, damn, he's normally is in good films.
He would probably have been in Platoon before this, I think, kind of going timeline wise. But it's
I know. It's just it's not to my taste.
Yeah,
and it's not even one of those films where like, oh, it's so bad, it's good. It's just like, ugh.
Yeah,
I actually enjoyed Lionheart a bit more, surprisingly enough, because there was so much wrong with that.
Lionheart was terrible.
Yeah.
I used to really like that film. I haven't seen it in a very long time, and looking at it, I was just like, oh my god, this is abysmal. Like, I mean, at least with Bloodsport, it was one of Van Damme's earlier films, and you could say he can't really act in it, but there's a thing with Jean-Claude Van Damme that I always kind of thought that he might be in on the
joke
like about things because he didn't.
I suppose again, I mean, if you go off that's, I suppose, it's another path you can wander down, I suppose, really, if you're talking about things. Arnold Schwarzenegger was a sportsman, a bodybuilder, sort of turned actor and all the rest, and he wasn't great at acting or even speaking, but I think there's a lot of that where people are like, they excel in like the sporting arena or something like that, and then it's like, throw him into an action role, and it's like, yeah, but you have to be able to act as well as...
But there's something likeable about Van Damme, I think, in things. In some of his later films, maybe not so much. I think when the cocaine probably got to be too much of a problem.
Well, one thing I will admire is he obviously really, really was proud of his butt.
Oh God, yeah! Nearly every fucking film was just like
it's just like, when is there a shot?
An obligatory ass shot.
Yeah, naked Jean-Claude Van Damme walking across is like posing, and it was almost like that Ned Flanders thing. It feels like I'm wearing nothing.
Or with him doing the splits, there always have to be things with him doing this. But for the time, like say you had like say Chuck Norris and all these kind of older guys. It was like
definitely don't want to see a Chuck Norris not that I want to see Jean-Claude Van Damme, but at least it's like you can kind of go, I suppose, if I had an ass like that, he's showing it off.
Kicking, like the high kicks and the style of fighting was like, and you saw it was him actually doing it. It wasn't like a stuntman coming in doing all these kind of things. And like you compare him to say someone like, as much as I like Michael Dudikoff in the 80s at American Ninja and stuff, he just kind of went with the sword and and kind of he was a ninja.
Yeah.
Not real life.
Going
Maybe
pew,
it was.
pew
I don't know.
pew with your sword.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
But yeah, all these guys, and then say someone compared to say who seemed to start off at around the same time, Seagal, who's like overly serious and quite obviously a knob, and you compare Van Damme to him. Or Van Damme is exciting to watch, and he seems like
He seems
he's
like
a
enjoying
nice
what
guy.
he's
Like,
at.
yeah,
That's it. Yeah.
exactly. You know, like it's not like fucking any of these movies are meant to be overly serious. But like you get to Lionheart, and I think they try and inject where he's like, I want to do a bit of acting in this and have a bit of a more of a story to it.
Yeah,
Where
so
it's like,
let this be my Oscar movie.
yeah, where there's like scenes of him walking around New York, and it's like act cold,
Yeah,
and
so
he's like pulling
"Brr,
his collar up
brr,
and going, ooh, and rubbing his arms.
Yes, and of course there's he's such a heroic figure because all he wants to do is help his sister-in-law and the little girl, and sort of all these touching scenes where she's kind of like, I love you, uncle, even though I've never met you before in all my life. And yeah, obviously going for the sort of the tear in the eye kind
So
of
I think there's too much of that stuff in it. Like,
it's so soppy like that.
Where the fight scenes that are in it are actually quite good, and some of the characters that are in it, they obviously get fleshed out a little bit more, and they're a little bit more bizarre. Well, like the Scotsman, and it's like he's like wearing a kilt and Scottish, and people are like, oh, that's just the way Scottish people dress.
Because
like,
they always go out in full like dresses in like I've got my sporran and I've got my knee socks and I've got everything. No, bizarre.
And then there was like, I don't know where he was from. I think he was meant to be like a Vega ripoff from Street Fighter, where he was in like spandex shorts and stuff, and they were fighting in a swimming pool, and he like scratched Jean-Claude Van Damme's face.
Oh yeah.
And then like the main bad guy Attila, which I'm not really quite sure what country he was meant to be from. But him being a giant, and he's just like, oh, he toys with his victims first, and was setting it up to. But
I actually think the best character was your one.
she would. I can't think of her name. It was
Basically, she was the one running the underground fight club and such, and she was just she looked a bit like one of the chicks out of the Robert Palmer.
Yeah, it was that 80s
so
thing
it was the
with
short
slick back hair,
and the bright red lipstick and the very
business
sleek,
suits.
Sleek black.
Although she was working out in their hotel room at one point, and it was like,
she was wearing full tights and leotard.
yeah, that's what. Yeah, where you kind of go, Jesus, that'd be like.
But she just, I don't know, she just reminded me of if you brought a Randy house cat to life, because she was just slinking all over the place, and she was all like, rah, rah.
She was like fucking constantly coming on to Jean-Claude.
This is it, and she'd be like throwing herself on the floor.
A sex toy.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I want to live like a fighter. I have to live rough. With his don't forget his mentor, which was the guy that he befriended that had like the really bad
one weird ear.
Yeah, and it had to be
that?
fake. I think it was meant to be because he was like an ex-fighter, so I think they wanted to do cauliflower ear, but they didn't really know how to do it.
Honestly.
So they had like this grey bit stuck on his ear.
Looking at that going, what's wrong with that guy's ear? Does he have some like leprosy or contagious? Now we'd probably look up the guy who played it and be like some devastating cancer.
Leprosy, yeah.
But it was a bizarre choice if it was makeup, to actually go with something like that. But I think him and her were the two standout characters in it. She was just so over the top.
She was like the bad guys from the French Foreign Legion that were chasing them. They were. There was just something horrible about, even from the start, like where they were just like slapping them and beating them and stuff.
Yeah,
and then when they show up,
drown them, man.
they're just like, they were bastards, like real bastards. But where the film I think falls short is like the soppy moments, or the kind of the exposition goes on too long, or like it takes them forever to get to America.
Yeah,
in it.
It's basically like, let's just show him trekking through the desert, and then he's like, lands at the ocean, and he's like, score, and it's like, well, you can't drink the seawater because it's salty.
Well, he finds a boat.
You're going to fucking swim.
Going to America, and then they're like, I know you're fucking.
But that's the thing, is he walks onto the seashore, and then he somehow finds like a fucking boat that should be in a dock. I was like, how did he get to the boat? Did he swim out from the beach?
No, he was in a dock. He found a dock. He just followed the seashore, you see, up to a dock.
But that's bananas. Like, that was just a whole big, long, extra long thing.
I think there's nothing wrong with films like doing that Indiana Jones thing and going, I'm going to go to America, and then just having the fucking dock going across. It's like, right, you're there. Don't fucking care how you got there. Like, unless something happens along the way that's going to feed into the story later on down the line.
Like, there's a little bit where he fucking, I don't know, he hit your man on the boat, the captain. The captain was like, you belong to me and you fucking stoke the engines and blah blah blah, and he's like, no, bang. Okay, that's grand, fair enough, it just shows he doesn't take shit. But you could have just jumped straight to that scene.
With him fighting with like he's commanders in the military kind of shows that he doesn't take shit.
Yes, but that's the thing, everyone is like particularly evil that he comes up against. Like your man, the commander in the army, is basically like, I don't care about your family, you can fight and your ass belongs to me and I tell you when you go home. And again with your man on they're basically like slave owners kind of a thing almost. They're like, and
the only way that like when the French Foreign Legion guys catch up with him at the end, and your woman, we'll call her Karen, sells him out to him, and they're waiting for him to get beaten up by this Attila guy. And then when he wins the fight, they're like, oh, now you've earned our respect. You can stay here.
Yeah, but they still actually prized him away from...
Yeah, it's only when they hear his niece going, oh, no, why do you have to go? Papa, Papa.
But even at that, they could have stopped at that stage and went, no, it's all right, honey, don't worry about that. But they still loaded him into the car and drove like down the street and then stopped down in the next block and kind of...
But that's because you had to have the shot of him running back,
into the sunset,
even though he had a broken rib and loads of things wrong with it. And now I've had broken ribs a few times.
You don't run it.
You fucking don't run it. Let alone kind of like he goes into a fight against a guy like about 2 foot taller than him. Like... He could have easily said, nah, fuck it. Yeah, I'm not doing this shit. Or I'll do it another time. But the fights are...
The music was something else that just like baffled me as well, because they had this like, it was meant to be sort of this, I don't know, real empathetic sort of heart-rending music every time the kid popped up and stuff like that. But they started, it was all like, I don't know, fucking flutes or something like that, you know. But they started playing it like overly loud that you couldn't actually hear what was being said. So it was like this fucking flute was just like hollering, you know, over everything
everyone loved panpipes, so...
that's probably what it was, it's fucking panpipes or something like that. But it was like that was being played through a megaphone. And it reminded me a little bit of... like a fucking, it's more sort of an airplane type of a thing, or you know, it's just
as
like,
in Airplane the movie.
Yes, exactly, as in some sort of spoof like that, where it's like you can't hear a word of the dialogue for the sake of the fucking.
The music in Bloodsport is actually fairly catchy though, even though it's insane with the kumate, kumate. Kumate, kumate. But it's very 80s, and there is a lot of fans to it. Like, I like synthwave.
Yes.
And there is an awful lot of people big into like the Bloodsport soundtrack. It's probably one of those ones that's probably a bit of say actual synthwave is still a bit underground, but people that make it, that they like certain things where I'm going to rip off this or I'm going to fuck it, you know.
Yes, I'll steal
and
it
that's,
from
I think, maybe one of those ones where it's like, oh, it's a bit of a hidden gem, even though it's like a fairly well known movie. Like.
Yeah. That's true.
But so yeah, you liked Lionheart just because it was so...
It was, I mainly liked it because of your one that ran the fight club, because she's so insane. Because like she was literally just rubbing up against everyone, like kind of going, "Ooh, are you looking, show me your arse again," kind of a thing.
She was quite good at playing a villain though, in it. And there was points in where you kind of thought, maybe she's not as evil, and then it's like she sells him out for no reason whatsoever.
But she was very good at organising the old underground fight rings, because they were having them in like car parks and they had all these fancy Bentleys and stuff, and they used to pull up into a perfect
that was excellent.
And it's like we'll use the headlights, and everyone was just like, they're just screeching into underground car
but
parks.
But surely that would blind you, and if the fight went on for a lot longer, your battery would be dead.
Absolutely, yeah, it'd be overheated like with the heat of the lights.
So they'd have to get people to go around and jumpstart all the different cars.
Maybe that's why they're in a circle like that. You just have one lad in the middle just jumpstarting them all, one by one.
Yes.
Yes.
But what was it? I can't remember what I was going to say.
Well, that's actually, I think the women in it are fucking lunatics as well, because there was another one that turned up to it as well, and she got like splattered by one of the boxers, the fighters' blood.
Oh yeah, and she drank his blood.
And she was like, it was splattered all over her face, and she was like, oh, blood.
Yeah. I'm convinced Joey Belladonna was in it.
Yes, as one of the spectators, yeah.
They had him a few times in it, and it fucking looked a lot like Joey Belladonna. It was a singer from Anthrax.
Yeah, there's not that many like people that look like him with that length of hair and all the rest.
Yeah, you know, and the size, like someone of diminutive. He's small.
Smaller guy. Yes, he's not like a 6'6" giant or anything like that. Yeah.
But like I mean, the show is called Good Thing. So I suppose really in there, two of them are kind of classic movies. They don't really. I think Bloodsport. Personally, I think Bloodsport stands up. a lot better to the test of time, even though it doesn't stand up to the test of time.
It's just it fell apart slightly less badly than the other one, I suppose. Yeah,
and like they're both funny with in their own kind of weird kind of ways. Like there's a Bloodsport where he's trying to run away from the military police that are trying to bring him back, where it's Forrest Whitaker and the other guy, and they play like happy music where he's like leading them on
it's like a Benny Hill kind of a chase. Yeah.
And he's like swinging around things and like, oh, you'll never catch me. Oh, even
and it's like military police, they'll fucking shoot you if they can't catch you.
But the whole thing where if it was done like that the whole time, where it's like nearly tongue in cheek, but it wasn't. It was like they fucking had him at one point where they had the tasers out and they were nearly going to kill him and stuff, and he got away.
It turns very serious and dark all of a sudden, which I think maybe it doesn't really know where it stands itself. Like, is it like kind of a ha buddy kind of like a film for kids to really enjoy, or is it like a serious, dark and gritty, sort of fucking Fight Club kind of a thing,
But see, it is that thing where it's probably why a lot of people our age still like Bloodsport and like it does appeal to kids because it has that thing where it makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, but everything makes sense when you're a kid. You just accept and you go, yeah, he's off fighting in the Kumite, yeah, of course. Yeah,
and like I was saying, Jean-Claude Van Damme, particularly at the start of his career, he's very likeable. Like there was something, especially compared to a lot of the other guys, even say Dolph Lundgren, who came across as being like
Jean-Claude Van Damme, I suppose, would have gone from, I don't want to say the everyman, but I suppose he looked relatively normal and friendly.
You couldn't compare him to Arnold Schwarzenegger, whereas at that stage all
just
those
like
massive guys, whereas and he could move, so and he'd smile and laugh, whereas like, oh, this guy can fucking kick your ass, but he seems like a friendly kind of normal dude.
You wouldn't mind being friends with him, whereas he'd be fucking terrified or intimidated to walk up to someone like Arnold and go, hello, I'll eat your face.
Whereas like we must look at Universal Soldier or something. The first Universal Soldier is fucking brilliant because Dolph Lundgren is really menacing in it, and you well believe he will fucking kill Jean-Claude Van Damme's character.
Does Dolph Lundgren just have a square haircut, or is his head square?
His head is square. Okay. It's a medical condition.
Right. Square-headedness.
Frankensteinitis.
Okay.
But, whereas and Jean-Claude Van Damme, you're really rooting for him because he comes across, he's the underdog, because it's like, how is he going to beat this fucking... And the two of them are dead already, so it's just... But, there is that whole aspect to it. And it's very... I think that's the thing why people liked him, was that... underdog kind of thing, or that Bruce Willis kind of thing, but like he was more of a believable action.
He seemed to know what he was at and all the rest.
Like Time Cop is a great film as well.
I don't think I've seen Time Cop.
We did a podcast on that years ago.
Did we?
Yeah, we must look at it again because it is actually a great film. It's I don't think people go looking at it go, what the fuck are they on it? But it is. It's he did a lot of really, really good films that were like from up until the mid-90s and stuff. And then I suppose it happens with everyone.
Yeah, they have their moment in the sun. Exactly.
But like, I mean, he's still around. He's still making films. And like,
which is no mean feat either, considering. Yeah, like, I mean, you start off in the 80s doing action, and like that's. You're talking 40 odd years later, and to still be able to high kick your way around. That's what
he did. I didn't look at it, but he did that JCVD where it was like
that's his initials.
Yeah, taking the piss out of himself. Where he's like, someone mistakes him, they think that he's a real spy or something like that, or maybe he is a spy or something. But then there was a TV show that he did where it was like a heightened reality show, where I don't think it was actually real. It was like playing up nearly like a fucking Curb Your Enthusiasm thing. It was meant to be very good. That's why he came back. He had a massive comeback with this. Because I think people were like, this guy's got a really good sense of humour, and he's basically fucking taking the piss out of himself.
A bit like Michael Bolton, I suppose, in Long Island,
But you're even like we did a thing on Street Fighter 2 a while ago, and we did it with the games, and we looked at the movie Street Fighter 2, which is awful. But I remember looking at an interview with him, and he was talking about it, and they were like, fucking, what was going on with you in Street? And he was like, I was just doing like cocaine the whole time.
Fair enough.
He was like, I was out of my head on cocaine the whole way through the film, like I didn't fucking, and you could see it with him kind of when you look at the kind of go, he's fucking coked up, like he doesn't have a clue what's going on.
He's just like, happy to be there.
So I admire that kind of on it. He's self-depreciating or self-deprecating.
Self-depreciating.
He's like, I'm only worth 80p now. But go off and look at the two films. All the Jean-Claude Van Damme's movies.
Yes. And other martial arts stuff while you're at it.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be looking at a lot more martial arts stuff over the next while because I think we've exhausted nearly every horror movie. Oh no, actually next week we will be doing Candyman because as the time of recording this, Tony Todd died just a few days ago, so I think it'd be nice to go back and
have a look at one of his fantastic works. That's it.
Well, all of them.
Yes, I know. Candyman is just my favourite, though. In fairness, what was I going to say? Talk about wrestling at some stage.
We were going to do that months ago actually, and then we kind of because we actually got really big into wrestling. I think it was like we look at wrestling for a month,
just
and we do a podcast for it, and then that was probably about fucking 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, and now every Saturday night is just like, okay, it's time for the wrestling. Come on.
So we look at Raw, and like I mean, the thing is, like we will get into it. We'll do a whole podcast because WWE. I don't know how they managed to do it, but it's definitely going through a golden period at the moment.
Again, another peak,
it's fucking fantastic. It's really, really good entertainment. The wrestlers are fantastic in it. The writing is actually really good to it, and it just, I don't know. It feels like when you're looking at an episode, we mainly look at Raw. It fucking goes by really at a breakneck speed.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 hours or something like that, but it doesn't feel like it. But that's not the thing, and we mentioned, I suppose, just because we're talking about martial arts, we used to watch an awful lot of UFC reality shows and all the rest. And I don't know, I just, I'm just getting to an age where I'm kind of like, I don't need to see somebody getting their nose split open like 50 times or whatever. The UFC is just a little bit too brutal, whereas the WWE is just a little bit more happy and fun and I know it's all storylines and all the rest. No, it's all kayfabe or whatever you want to say, but it's nice and entertaining.
It's the athleticism.
That's it. While at the same point there's some brutal fucking damage done.
It's the athleticism though. Like I mean, these guys, they're athletes at their peak.
Yeah, and there's like these 300-pound guys and they're fucking somersaulting off ropes and stuff, and I'm kind of like, I couldn't fucking climb over that rope.
But as well, even just be able to do some of that stuff for 20 minutes straight,
and take all the abuse.
Like I mean, say when people used to be going on about, it's all fake. So fucking what? You fucking try and do that for 20 minutes, and don't tell me they're not getting hurt. You can only get fucking dropped on your head. So there's loads of things you see it happen, and it's like you cannot fake that. You can maybe minimise kind of like the damage to it a little
but
bit.
You can't fake like somebody's back gets scratched and blood starts pouring out. I mean, what's that?
Yeah, they're hardcore. They're proper they're proper athletes. They're amazing. They're both athletes and they're entertainers.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they're both. Like, I mean, someone like John Cena and, like, I mean, Batista and some of those guys. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, we get into it. We'll be doing the whole part.
Yeah. But I suppose just to bring it back to this, that's sort of where my head is at with this kind of thing. Like, you can get sportsmen who try to break into acting, or you can get actors who try to break into sports or whatever. It's very hard to get somebody who is good at what they do sports-wise and able to act.
It is, and there's some wrestlers, like, they're very good at that.
But I mean, as you're saying, JCVD was probably one of them where you had a little bit of... Arnold, I know he's very likeable and all the rest, but as I said at the start, he couldn't fucking speak even. It was just like we'll just get this man out.
He had a physical presence.
Looking,
it's just like, don't get him talking.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, you can see like he gave like the Terminator a lot of heart in Terminator 2 without doing,
and as well he get like, that was the thing in Terminator 1, I suppose he gave it a huge amount of menace because it was so silent the whole time, and every time he opened his mouth it was kind of like,
so it's more than just a look at him. And the thing is, you do see him in real life and the way he is, and he's a bit of a fucking goofball, and
very nice,
so it's not like, and like, I mean, he's Arnie.
Yeah.
Governor. I mean, how many people have tried to... Like, I mean, I don't think we'll see another Arnold Schwarzenegger in our life.
It's such a bizarre life. I mean, like, just, coming from Austria, going over to the States, to Mr. Bodybuilder or whatever, and somehow he's ended up married into, like, the Kennedys, and he's, like, the governor of California. Like, that's fucking bizarre.
Yeah. Well, as well, like, to become... probably more recognisable than, say, John Wayne, who was the biggest. And I think he wanted to be like John Wayne. And it's like, well, you're probably after surpassing him
at
kind
this
of
stage,
by
yeah,
a long
everyone
shot,
will
you know.
know you, that's it.
Yeah, and it's like people, it isn't worth they saying that, like, the two most recognisable people in the world are like Santa Claus and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
So no matter what country you go to, people will know Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, exactly. More widely known than Jesus, basically.
Yeah.
Yes, but anyway, on that note.
Yeah, on that bit of blasphemy. But yeah, look. Yeah. See you next week.